The Elder Scrolls 6 is going to change the gaming industry forever. Wait a minute. Don't grab your pitchforks yet. Hear me out.
We are at Skyrim midnight release at GameStop, Mad Peoples.
It's November 11th, 2011. You're standing in line at midnight, surrounded by people dressed as warriors, mages, and thieves. The air is electric with anticipation.
What do you think about Skyrim?
It's gonna be awesome.
What's awesome about it?
Everything.
Awesome?
Yeah.
Really?
Just awesome.
So, okay, so we are here with James, and he is playing.
Skyrim.
Yes, Skyrim.
GameStop employees are counting down the seconds, and then, finally, you're holding it. The Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim. You rush home, boot up your console or PC, and for the next several days, you disappear into another world entirely. Now, fast forward to today. That same game, released over a decade ago, still has hundreds of thousands of active players, still dominates modding communities, still appears on greatest games of all time lists, still gets re-released on new platforms. Skyrim didn't just succeed, it transcended gaming to become a cultural phenomenon that defines what we expect from open-world RPGs. And somewhere at Bethesda Game Studios, The Elder Scrolls 6 is in development. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. Elder Scrolls 6 isn't just another sequel. It's potentially the most important game release of the next decade. Its success or failure won't just affect Bethesda or Microsoft. It could fundamentally reshape the entire gaming industry's approach to open-world design, player agency, and what we consider a complete gaming experience in an era of live services and microtransactions. Today, we're going to explore why the Elder Scrolls series became so legendary, what made Skyrim and Oblivion resonate with millions of players on such a deep level, and why Elder Scrolls 6 stands at a crossroads that could either save or doom the traditional single-player RPG as we know it. This is going to be a journey, so grab your sweet roll and let's dive in. To understand why Elder Scrolls 6 matters so much, we need to go back, way back, to 1994, when a small team at Bethesda Softworks released the Elder Scrolls Arena. This wasn't just another dungeon crawler. This was something different, an entire continent you could explore with towns, wilderness, and dungeons that felt like they existed independent of your presence. Morrowind was weird, gloriously, unapologetically weird. This wasn't your typical fantasy world with knights and castles. This was Vardenfell, a volcanic island populated by dark elves who lived in giant mushrooms, worshipped living gods, and practiced slavery. You could contract diseases from rats that would slowly kill you if untreated. You could murder essential NPCs and break your questline permanently. The game told you when you'd done this, and then just let you continue in your broken world. This was revolutionary. Morrowind trusted you. It respected your intelligence and your agency in a way that games simply didn't at the time. Yes, you could fast travel between certain points, but mostly you walked, or jogged, or paid for transport on giant flea creatures called silt striders. And in that walking, in that slow traversal of a deeply strange world, something magical happened. You learned the land. You discovered hidden grottos and ancestral tombs, not because a quest marker told you to go there, but because you saw something interesting on the horizon while traveling between cities. You got lost. You got completely, hopelessly lost in the middle of an ash storm, stumbling into a Dwemer ruin you had no business being in, and you either died horribly or found something incredible. Morrowind didn't hold your hand. It threw you into the deep end and told you to swim. And for a certain type of player, this was intoxicating. This was freedom unlike anything we'd experienced in gaming. Then came 2006 and Oblivion, The Elder Scrolls 4. Oblivion arrived at a pivotal moment in gaming history. The Xbox 360 had just launched. High-definition gaming was becoming the standard, and Bethesda needed to prove that their deeply complex PC-focused RPG formula could work on consoles and appeal to a broader audience. They succeeded beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Oblivion took everything that made Morrowind special and made it more accessible. The world of Cyrodiil was more traditional fantasy than Morrowind's alien landscapes, green forests, medieval cities, Classic European fantasy. And you know what? That was exactly what it needed to be. Because Oblivion wasn't trying to be weird. It was trying to be welcoming. It had quest markers now. A compass that pointed you toward objectives. A fast travel system that let you zip between any location you'd discovered. For Morrowind purists, these were compromises. But for millions of new players, these were the features that made an Elder Scrolls game finally approachable. And then there was the Dark Brotherhood questline. If you've played Oblivion, you know. If you haven't, let me paint you a picture. You kill someone, maybe a random bandit, maybe someone who wronged you. You go to sleep, and you wake up in an abandoned house, face to face with a mysterious figure named Lucian LeChance, who congratulates you on your murder and invites you to join a family of assassins. What follows is arguably the best questline Bethesda has ever written. This was emergent storytelling at its finest. This was a game trusting you to solve a problem creatively rather than following a script, and it was absolutely unforgettable. But Oblivion had its flaws. The level scaling meant that enemies grew with you, making progression feel meaningless. The main quest involving the Oblivion Gates became repetitive. Yet, despite these issues, Oblivion sold over 9 million copies and introduced millions of players to the Elder Scrolls formula. It set the stage. And then Skyrim took over the world, November 11th, 2011. Even the release date felt mythical. Skyrim didn't just launch, it detonated. Within 48 hours, it had shipped 7 million copies. Within a month, it had generated 450 million in revenue. But numbers don't tell the real story. The real story is what Skyrim became. It became a verb. I'm going to go Skyrim for a few hours. Hey you're finally awake, the arrow to the knee. It became a lifestyle. People took days off work. Relationships ended, sleep schedules were destroyed, and we loved every second of it. But why? What made Skyrim special in a way that transcended normal gaming success? Let me tell you about my first dragon encounter. Not the scripted one at the Western Watchtower, everyone has that story. No, I'm talking about my first random dragon encounter. I was level 8, exploring near Whiterun, and suddenly the sky went dark. I heard that roar. The music shifted, and this massive creature descended from the clouds and started burning everything in sight. I panicked. I ran. The dragon chased me toward a nearby farm where Imperial soldiers were stationed. They started fighting the dragon. A giant wandered into the battle from a nearby camp. Chaos erupted. The dragon killed 2 soldiers. The giant killed the dragon with a massive club swing, and then the giant killed me because I was standing too close. I reloaded. I tried again. This time I led the dragon to a different location. Different NPCs got involved. Different outcome. Same dragon encounter. Completely different story. And that was my story. Nobody else had that exact experience. That's what made Skyrim special. So what is it exactly? What's the secret sauce that makes Elder Scrolls games so compelling that people play them for thousands of hours? It starts with environmental storytelling. Bethesda doesn't just build locations, they build archaeology. Every dungeon has a story told through item placement, skeletal remains, journals, and environmental clues. You might enter a bandit camp and find a locked cage with a journal describing how the bandits captured someone. You find the key on a bandit leader. You unlock the cage and find a skeleton clutching a family heirloom. You just experienced a tragedy that happened before you arrived, that had nothing to do with any quest, that the game never explicitly told you about. This is storytelling through exploration, and it makes the world feel lived in. Then there's the build diversity. In Skyrim, you can be a sneaky archer, a destructive mage, a tanky warrior, a conjurer who never fights directly, a thief who avoids combat entirely, a werewolf. The game accommodates all of this. It doesn't force you into a class. At character creation, you are what you do. Use swords, become better at swords. Use magic, become better at magic. Your character evolves organically based on your playstyle. And then there's the modding. Oh, the modding. Bethesda made a crucial decision early on. They would release official modding tools and support community modification of their games. This seemed crazy at the time. Why would you let players change your carefully crafted experience? Why would you give them the tools to potentially break your game? Because Bethesda understood something profound. They weren't just selling a game. They were selling a platform, a canvas, a foundation upon which millions of creative people could build their own visions. Today, there are over 60,000 mods for Skyrim. Mods that add new lands larger than the base game. Mods that completely overhaul combat systems, magic systems, economies. Mods that add survival mechanics, seasonal weather, improved AI, new questlines that rival the base game's quality. There are mods that turn Skyrim into a horror game, a medieval life simulator. The game that Bethesda released in 2011 is just the beginning. The game that exists today, in 2024, is a collaborative creation between Bethesda and millions of modders, and it's unlike anything else in gaming. But here's the thing, the world didn't stand still while Bethesda rested on Skyrim's laurels. In 2015, CD Projekt Red released The Witcher 3, and it fundamentally raised the bar for what open-world RPGs could be. Every side quest felt meaningful. The writing was sharp and morally complex. Character development was exceptional. The world was gorgeous and densely packed with content. And most importantly, Geralt's story was compelling in a way that Bethesda's often generic protagonists never quite achieved. The Witcher 3 showed that you could have player choice and a defined protagonist. You could have an open world and a tightly written narrative. These weren't contradictions, they were challenges to overcome through better design. Meanwhile, the gaming industry itself has transformed. Live service games dominate. Fortnite, Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Warframe. These games don't end. They evolve. They keep players engaged for years through constant updates, seasonal content, and battle passes. Single-player games are increasingly seen as risky investments by publishers because you can't monetize them indefinitely. And then there's Starfield. We need to talk about Starfield. We have to, because Starfield is the most recent Bethesda Game Studios release, using their latest technology, representing their current design philosophy. And the reception was complicated. When Starfield launched in September 2023, it was met with enthusiasm, then cautious optimism, then growing criticism. Not because it was broken or unplayable, it was relatively polished at launch. Not because it was fundamentally bad, there's clearly a good game in there, but because it revealed some troubling trends in Bethesda's design philosophy. The procedural generation that seemed so promising in previews turned out to create sameness. When you've seen one abandoned research facility, you've seen them all literally, because the game reuses the same layouts constantly. The thousands of planets sounded impressive until you realized most were empty and uninteresting. The fast travel became so integral to the experience that you barely piloted your ship. You just menu hopped from location to location. The sense of journey, of discovery, that made Skyrim's world so engaging, it was largely absent. And the modding community, that incredible force that kept Skyrim alive for over a decade, they struggled with Starfield. The procedural generation made environmental changes difficult. The fragmented nature of the game world made comprehensive overhauls challenging. The mods that have appeared are good, but they can't transform the game the way mods transformed Skyrim. Starfield currently sits at mixed on Steam, not terrible, but concerning for a flagship Bethesda title. Player counts dropped dramatically after the initial launch window. And while some die-hard fans defend it passionately, the broader gaming community moved on quickly. This matters for Elder Scrolls 6 because it raises a terrifying question. Has Bethesda lost their touch, or was Starfield just a misstep in a different genre? Elder Scrolls 6 isn't just important to Bethesda or Microsoft. It's important to the entire gaming ecosystem. Let me explain why. Right now, the single-player RPG is under siege. Not from player disinterest, Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3 prove there's massive appetite for these experiences, but from publisher economics. Why invest $200 million in a game that players buy once when you can invest that same amount in a live service game that generates revenue for years? Bethesda represents one of the last major studios with the budget, ambition, and track record to create truly massive single-player RPGs. BioWare has stumbled repeatedly post-Mass Effect 3. Rockstar makes maybe one game per decade. CD Projekt Red is rebuilding trust after Cyberpunk 2077's launch disaster. If Elder Scrolls 6 fails, if it releases to mediocre reviews and disappointing sales, it will send a message to every major publisher. Even the biggest RPG franchise can't compete in the modern market. Expect more live services, more microtransactions, more games designed to keep you playing forever rather than providing a complete, satisfying experience. But if Elder Scrolls 6 succeeds, if it captures that Skyrim magic, if it shows that deep single-player experiences can still dominate the market, it proves that there's still room for games that respect player time and intelligence, games that end, games that are complete at launch, games that trust modding communities to extend their lifespan organically rather than through paid DLC and season passes. The stakes are existential. This isn't hyperbole. So what does Elder Scrolls 6 need to do? What challenges must it overcome to achieve the success we're hoping for? First, it needs to modernize while retaining identity. The Bethesda formula explore, fight, loot, level up is tried and true, but it's also showing its age. Combat in Skyrim was never great. It was serviceable. The AI was basic. The physics were janky. These things were forgivable in 2011. They won't be in 2026 or whenever ES6 releases. The game needs combat that feels impactful and skillful. It needs AI that reacts intelligently to player actions. It needs writing that can compete with The Witcher 3 and Baldur's Gate 3. It needs quests that surprise and delight rather than following predictable patterns. But, and this is crucial, it can't lose what makes Elder Scrolls special in the pursuit of modernization. It still needs to be a sandbox where player agency matters. It still needs environmental storytelling. It still needs that sense of stumbling onto something incredible that wasn't marked on your map. Second, it needs to solve the Starfield problem of scale versus density. Bigger isn't always better. Skyrim's map was relatively small compared to many modern open worlds, but every location was handcrafted and meaningful. The temptation will be to make ES6 massive to create the biggest Elder Scrolls world ever, but if that comes at the cost of copy-pasted content and procedural emptiness, it's a bad trade. Give us one province, Hammerfell, High Rock, wherever, and make it dense, varied, and interesting. Make every ruin, every cave, every town feel unique. Make the world feel curated rather than generated. Third, it needs a technical foundation that supports modding. This is non-negotiable. The modding community is what kept Skyrim alive for 13 years. If Elder Scrolls 6 launches on an engine that's difficult to mod, or if Bethesda restricts modding to push their Creation Club paid mods, it will kill the long-term potential of the game. The community needs official tools. They need documentation. They need Bethesda's support and encouragement. The mods will come if the foundation is solid. Fourth, and this is the big one, it needs to stick the landing on launch. Bethesda has a reputation for buggy releases. It Just Works became a meme precisely because Bethesda games often don't. We've given them a pass on this for years because the games were so good underneath the bugs. But that goodwill is eroding. Cyberpunk 2077 showed how a disastrous launch can damage even beloved franchises. Elder Scrolls 6 needs to work on day one. Not perfectly expecting perfection from a Bethesda game is unrealistic, but well enough that bugs enhance the experience rather than ruin it. But it's not all doom and gloom. Elder Scrolls 6 has some incredible opportunities that no previous entry had access to. Modern hardware is a game changer. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X have SSDs that eliminate loading screens. They have processing power that can support genuinely complex AI systems. They have memory that can load massive, detailed worlds without compromise. Imagine a Skyrim-style game with zero loading between interiors and exteriors. Imagine NPCs with schedules and behaviors complex enough to feel truly alive. The success of Baldur's Gate 3 proved that deep, complex RPG systems can achieve mainstream success. BG3 sold over 15 million copies while featuring turn-based combat. This gives Bethesda permission to be ambitious with their systems. They don't need to dumb down for mass appeal. Complexity is appealing if it's well designed and properly communicated. The modding ecosystem is more sophisticated than ever. Tools like SKSE, Skyrim Script Extender, have enabled mods that completely transform core game systems. Imagine if Bethesda worked directly with top modders from the beginning, integrating the lessons learned from over a decade of community development. What if quest design incorporated the innovations of Legacy of the Dragonborn or interesting NPCs? What if combat drew from Wildcat and Ultimate Combat? The community has been iterating on Bethesda's formula for years. There's a wealth of knowledge to tap into. And then there's the Xbox/Microsoft advantage. Game Pass provides a safety net. Even if Elder Scrolls 6 doesn't sell 30 million copies, if it drives Game Pass subscriptions and keeps players engaged, that's a win for Microsoft. This could actually give Bethesda more creative freedom, less pressure to chase trends, more ability to make the game they want to make rather than the game market analysts predict will sell. So let's imagine it. Let's picture a world where Elder Scrolls 6 is everything we hope it will be. You boot up the game on launch day. You create your character with robust customization options that make you feel like you're creating a person, not just an avatar. You emerge into the world, let's say Hammerfell, with its vast deserts, political intrigue, and diverse cultures. The graphics are stunning, but not at the expense of art direction. The world feels exotic and dangerous and inviting all at once. You start walking. Not because you have to, but because you want to see what's over that next dune. You find a small village being harassed by bandits. You have options. Fight them directly, sneak into their camp and poison their supplies, persuade them to leave, or ignore the situation entirely. Your choice matters. The village remembers. Combat feels weighty and skillful. Sword strikes have impact. Magic is spectacular and tactical. Stealth rewards patience and planning. You're not just clicking until enemies die, you're engaging with systems that respond to your approach. You stumble into a ruin. No quest marker led you here. You found it by accident while exploring. Inside, environmental storytelling tells the tale of what happened here. You piece together the narrative through placement, journals, and clues. You find a unique item that enables a playstyle you hadn't considered. You're not following a breadcrumb trail, you're discovering. The main quest is engaging but not urgent. The guild quest lines are as memorable as the Dark Brotherhood in Oblivion. The side quests feature moral complexity and multiple solutions. NPCs have personalities and react dynamically to your reputation and actions. And the modding tools, released alongside the game. Comprehensive documentation. Bethesda actively encourages community creation. Within weeks, incredible mods start appearing. Within months, the modding scene is thriving. Within years, the game has evolved into something unique for every player. This is the dream. This is what success looks like. Now imagine the ripple effects. Elder Scrolls 6 launches to critical acclaim and massive sales. Within a month, it sold 15 million copies. Game Pass subscriptions spike. Player counts remain high months after launch. The modding scene explodes. Metacritic scores are in the 90s. Other publishers take notice. Single-player RPGs suddenly look like viable investments again. BioWare gets renewed confidence for the next Dragon Age. Obsidian gets greenlit for a new IP. Smaller studios see that there's still a market for ambitious, player-driven experiences. The conversation shifts. Instead of how do we retain players indefinitely, publishers start asking, how do we create unforgettable experiences that players will treasure? The pendulum swings back toward complete games rather than perpetual services. Bethesda becomes the gold standard again. Other developers study what ES6 did right. Design patterns emerge. Best practices are established. The entire medium benefits from one game being excellent. This isn't fantasy. This is what happened with Skyrim. One game can shift the entire industry's trajectory. One success can prove that certain design philosophies are still viable, still valuable, still what players actually want. But we need to consider the other possibility, the one that keeps me up at night. Elder Scrolls 6 releases and it's fine. Not bad, not great, just fine. It's prettier than Skyrim, but mechanically similar. The writing is serviceable but uninspired. The bugs are more annoying than charming. The world is big but empty in places. The quests follow predictable patterns. Reviews are mixed. Sales are decent but below expectations. Players bounce off after 30-40 hours instead of playing for years. The modding scene struggles because the foundation is difficult to work with, or Bethesda has restricted access to push paid mods. The narrative becomes Bethesda can't recapture the magic. Comparisons to Skyrim are unfavorable. The game is seen as a disappointment, a relic of design philosophy that worked in 2011 but doesn't in 2026. Publishers see this and make decisions accordingly. Even Elder Scrolls couldn't make traditional single-player RPGs work in the modern market. Budgets for similar projects get cut. Studios pivot to live services. The games we love become rarer and rarer. BioWare's next project is canceled. Obsidian gets absorbed into making content for existing Microsoft franchises. Smaller studios can't get funding for ambitious RPGs. The genre withers. This isn't catastrophizing. This is a genuine possible outcome based on industry trends we're already seeing. And so we wait. We've been waiting since that teaser trailer in 2018, a 30-second video showing mountains and text. 6 years ago as of this recording, and we still don't have a release date. We don't even have a real trailer or gameplay footage. Bethesda is taking their time. After Starfield's mixed reception, they can't afford to rush. They need to get this right. They know the stakes. They know what this game means. Todd Howard has said they're making the game they've always wanted to make, that it will be the ultimate Elder Scrolls experience, that they're using everything they've learned over decades of development. But words are just words. We've heard promises before. We've seen trailers that looked incredible and games that disappointed. We've learned to be cautiously optimistic, to manage expectations, to hope for the best while preparing for something less. The waiting is torture because we care, because we've invested thousands of hours into these worlds, because Skyrim was there during difficult times in our lives, providing escape and comfort and adventure when we needed it most, because we want so badly for this to be special. Every rumor gets analyzed. Every piece of concept art gets dissected. Every interview with Todd Howard gets scrutinized for hints about setting, features, release windows. We're starving for information about a game that might still be years away from release. But here's the thing about waiting. It gives us time to reflect on what we actually want. Do we want Skyrim 2? A literal sequel that plays it safe and delivers exactly what we got in 2011 but prettier? Or do we want Bethesda to take risks, to innovate, to potentially fail in interesting ways, rather than succeed in predictable ones? Do we want them to chase trends, adding crafting systems and settlement building and multiplayer elements because those are popular? Or do we want them to stick to their core strengths, even if it means the game feels different from current market leaders? Do we want immediate gratification, a game released tomorrow that's good enough? Or are we willing to wait years longer for something potentially transcendent? These aren't easy questions, and the community doesn't agree on the answers. Some people want Morrowind's complexity brought back. Others think Skyrim's accessibility was perfect. Some want radically different combat. Others are fine with the existing formula. But maybe the beauty of Elder Scrolls is that it can accommodate all of us. Through difficulty settings, playstyle options, and eventually mods, the game can be different things to different people. That's always been the series' greatest strength. What we can control is our response. We can support good design when we see it. We can provide constructive feedback instead of just complaining. We can celebrate what works and thoughtfully critique what doesn't. We can give Bethesda permission to take risks by not crucifying them when those risks don't all pay off. The relationship between developer and community is collaborative, even if it doesn't always feel that way. Despite everything, the wait, the uncertainty, the Starfield concerns, the industry pressures, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because Bethesda has surprised us before. Morrowind seemed impossible to follow up, and they delivered Oblivion. Oblivion seemed like a peak, and they gave us Skyrim. Each time they found a way to capture lightning in a bottle. I'm hopeful because the talent is still there. The designers who crafted Skyrim's best moments are still at Bethesda. They've learned from Starfield's mistakes. They've heard our feedback. I'm hopeful because the market has proven there's appetite for exactly what Elder Scrolls does best. Elden Ring showed players want exploration and discovery. Baldur's Gate 3 showed they want depth and player agency. The Witcher 3 showed they want meaningful narratives. Elder Scrolls has always combined these elements. I'm hopeful because the modding community is ready. They've spent over a decade honing their craft on Skyrim. They've created tools and frameworks and knowledge bases. If Bethesda gives them the foundation, they'll build something incredible. I'm hopeful because Microsoft has shown they're willing to be patient with their studios. They let Rare spend years on Sea of Thieves until it found its audience. They gave Obsidian time to make Pentiment and Grounded alongside Avowed. They might give Bethesda the time and resources ES6 needs to be special. Most of all, I'm hopeful because I remember November 11th, 2011. I remember that feeling of stepping out of Helgen Keep for the first time, seeing the massive world spread before me, and knowing I was about to embark on something unforgettable. I remember thousands of hours of joy, frustration, discovery, and wonder. That feeling is real. It happened. It can happen again. So why could Elder Scrolls 6 change everything? Because it represents a crossroads for an entire genre. Because its success or failure will influence industry decision-making for years. Because it's carrying the weight of over a decade of expectations and the hopes of millions of players who want to believe that games like this still have a place in the modern market. But more than that, it could change everything because at its core, Elder Scrolls has always been about possibility. The possibility of being anyone, doing anything, creating your own story in a world that responds to your choices. In an industry increasingly focused on prescribed experiences, guided narratives, and controlled outcomes, Elder Scrolls represents freedom. If ES6 can deliver on that promise, if it can make us feel that sense of wonder and agency that Skyrim provided, it won't just be a successful game. It will be a statement, a proof that games don't need to be services to be valuable, that single-player experiences can still dominate, that trusting players and giving them tools is more powerful than controlling their every action. We're standing at the threshold, just like we were in those midnight launch lines for Skyrim. We don't know exactly what we're going to get. We don't know when we're going to get it, but we know it's coming. And when it does, when we finally boot up Elder Scrolls 6, create our character, and take those first steps into whatever world Bethesda has crafted, we'll discover together whether this is the game that changes everything or just another chapter in a beloved series. Either way, we'll be there. Because that's what Elder Scrolls does. It brings us together in shared anticipation, shared exploration, and shared stories that we'll be telling for years to come. The wait continues. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the anticipation is part of the experience. Maybe the conversations we're having now about what we hope it will be are valuable in their own right. One thing is certain. When Elder Scrolls 6 finally arrives, the gaming world will be watching, and the reverberations of its success or failure will echo through the industry for years to come. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go install Skyrim again. For research purposes, definitely not because I'm addicted.